something in the kitchen, so I can't imagine a house without reading material, without newspapers, without magazines, without books. Sorry, I feel so out of place, like fish out of water. I feel suffocated. There's nothing to read. I remember one day I was interviewing Shashi Tharoor, and I did some research on him, and I found out that he had read 365 books a year. So, oh, that was good. I mean, amazing. And I asked him about that experience during the interview, but he laughed it off and said, that was not to be taken so seriously. Uh, but he said, yeah, I was not well. He was not well that year, so he was mostly in bed, and he started to read. And by the time into the second half of the year, he realized that if he really read faster, he could make it 365 books a day, and he did that. And he said it's a heck of it. So, but then still, it's a feat to read 365 books in 1 year. A book a day is remarkable, you know, and that's what made him now, the kind of reading habit. And we all know, whether we agree with his politics or not, but we all agree him what he can, what he can write on, what he can speak about. That's a conditioning of a mind. And I said, reading is prepares us for our future. The first book I read was Hesse's Siddhartha, and to be honest, I didn't understand a word of it. The philosophy, nothing. Then I picked up Don Murray's autobiographical novel, My Son's Father, and I really loved it. And it's so lyrical, and I could relate with it. And I finished in a little over a day. I still remember it was June. It was June, and it was raining incessantly. And I curled up in my couch and finished it reading. So that's a good experience. Antidote to Siddhartha. Then I chanced upon, in my father's collection, 100 Years of Solitude of Garcia Marquez. I still remember the cover of the edition, the dull gray painting of the mystery of the peasants. And I was enamored by the magic of Gabriel Marquez and the many charms of magic realism. You know, these early readings helped me. I still remember I wanted to be a writer. That is, I saw the first raw passion to be a writer. Uh, I found in Anis' eyes. One day I remember I was at in his house, and he showed me his fingers, which was all blisters. Because he's been typing overnight, and he had blisters on his fingers. And he said, I still remember the glint in the raw passion in his eyes to become a writer. That's when the first um embers or the fire fell into my belly to become a writer. That was from him. As I said, and I studied in a Malayalam medium, and I used to go to the British Library as well to read. I used to spend the whole day there, on days on end, reading up, learning by heart idioms and phrases. I used to read the dictionary quite religiously. Can you believe? I still remember going page after page. I was so enamored by the magic of words. So I used to read dictionary. I used to listen to the BBC's cricket commentary to understand words and their sounds. I mean, in the beginning, I never understood a word, but slowly the magic happened. The TMS, which is called Test Match Specials those days, was magic. And there is literature, there is life. Then, that's how I understood this is how a word is pronounced. Um, so today, I can tell you that it is reading that helps me write. Or that most important thing is that uh, it heals the wounds that life has inflicted on me. Reading is a balm. Reading is panacea. You know, we can easily forgive people. We can easily get a grip on what's happening, why certain things happen in our life. We've read, we can relate with people around us in a better way. So, in my personal uh, uh, opinion, or my opinion, reading is healing. So today I'm gonna, I want to present to you the magic of reading literature. Uh, Before that, I just what Hermann Hesse, the Nobel-winning German-born Swiss writer and painter, said in his essay, "The Magic of Books." Please listen carefully. I'll be quoting a lot of passages from books, and I want, as students, I want you to listen to it carefully, because if you miss something, that magic won't be there. I quote. This is what is written in his essay, "The Magic of Books." Quote: among the many worlds that man did not receive as a gift from nature, but created out of his own mind, the world of books is the greatest. Without the word, without the writing of books, there is no history. There is no concept of humanity. And if anyone wants to try to enclose in a small place, in a single house or a single room, the history of the human spirit and to make it its own, he can only do this in the form of a collection of books. And that's unquote. That's how important books are. They carry the history of the human spirit. On this reading day, let's understand that books carry the history of the human spirit. Nothing else. Not the gadgets that we carry, not the phones, the laptops, or the screens, or the movies that we carry. We watch, carry the spirit of the human, the history of the human spirit. It is the books that have been written over centuries that carry the spirit. They carry the history of the human spirit. Now move on. Why reading? As I said in the beginning, we read for information and entertainment. When you read your textbooks, they give you information. When you read newspapers and magazines, they give you news. But if you read literature, they edify you and equip you for your tomorrows. Let me dwell on reading fiction and poetry. Point number one: reading opens a new world. Every book is a magic window through which you see a different world, a world you have not experienced. You meet different people who do things differently, who eat food that you have not. It is a new world where the wind, the wave, and the sky are different. And you pick up a book, it takes you to a different world, to people you haven't met, to an experience you haven't had before. You meet people who eat different food, wear different dresses. That's where a writer can take you to. And instead of telling you or preaching you about the words that a book can take us to, I wanted to give you a couple of opening paras from a few novels that I love, and I hope that it will not bore you. And I demand attention, because this is writing at its best. And I want to start with the opening two paragraphs of the Nicaraguan writer uh, Gioconda Belli's novel, which is called Novel About Adam and Eve. The title of the novel is Infinity in the Palm of a Hand, a novel of Adam and Eve. Here we go. And he was suddenly, from not being to being conscious that he was. He opened his eyes, and this is Adam's experience, okay? Seeing the world. He opened his eyes, he touched himself and knew he was a man. Without knowing how he knew, he saw the garden and he felt someone watching him. He looked in every direction, hoping to see another like him. He was, as he was looking, air spilled into his throat. Its coolness stirred his senses. He could smell. He could take a deep breath. In his head, he felt the confused whirling of images seeking a name. Words, sounds surged up within him, clean and clear, and settled on everything around him. He named and saw what he named recognized itself. The breeze moved the branches of the trees. A bird sang. Long leaves opened their finely drawn hands. Where was he? He asked. Why didn't the one who was watching allow me to be seen? Who was this other? Unquote. And I found it quite captivating. The first when Adam was seeing the world. Now move on. This is the famous opening lines, one of the greatest novels of all time, if not the greatest, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Quote, many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Oriano Buntia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. At that time, Macondo was a village of 20 adobe houses, built on the bank of a river of clear water that ran along a bed of polished stones, which were white and enormous like prehistoric eggs. The world was so recent that many things lacked names, and in order to indicate them, it was necessary to point. Unquote. Let me give you now the magic of Arundhati Roy, the book which is familiar to us, The God of Small Things. This is how it begins. May in Imanam is a hot, brooding month. The days are long and humid. The river shrinks and black crows gorge on bright mangoes in still dusk green trees. Red bananas ripen, jackfruits burst, dissolute blue bottles hum vacuously in the fruity air. Then they stun themselves against clear window panes and die, fatly baffled in the sun. The nights are clear, but suffused with a sloth and sullen expectation. But by early June, the southwest monsoon breaks, and there are 3 months of wind and water with short spells of sharp, glittering sunshine that thrill children snatched to play with. The countryside turns an immodest green. Boundaries blur as tapioca fences take root and bloom. Brick walls turn moss green. Pepper vines snake up electric poles. Wild creepers burst through laterite banks and spill across flooded roads. Boats ply in the bazaars. The small fish appear in the puddles that fill the PWD potholes on the highways. Wow. No wonder she won the Booker for God of Small Things. It's so magical, so captivating. But at the same time, these imageries are very close to us. We turn around, we can see all these vegetation, all when monsoon comes, this happens around us. But she's captured it. Then I want to move to Africa, take you to Africa. This is the opening para of Dust, which is a powerful novel by Kenyan writer Yvonne Ovio. This is how it begins. He leaps over the two fire painted blossoms resting on the stark, cracked city pavement. Rust, these unfold into late Christmas season orange and black butterflies that flutter into the violet shade of the smoke encrusted roadside jacaranda tree. The thrum becomes a hum, becomes a thumping footsteps, and soon he is entangled in the thicket of jeers and tossed grey, black, and brown stones as he flees towards a still distant night. It is sad that in combat, some soldiers shoot over their enemy's head in order to avoid killing them. Some don't even fire at all. Moses Mbabasit Obidi Oganda's fingers tremble on the trigger on that old shiny AK-47. He hurls the gun away with a oh! The weapon spills across the road, a low-pitched guttural noise. See the difference between uh, these writing, the narratives, the language, the power, the words that they use. The world that these open these paragraphs open towards us. We are hooked, as a reader. At least I was. And now I'm going to, take you to a last example of different kind of writing. And this writer is from Thrissur itself. His name is Deepak Unnikrishnan. He is an award-winning writer with this. This is a debut novel called Temporary People, about the immigrants, Asian immigrants, expatriates in the Gulf, Arabian Gulf. And this is a stunning book. You should pick up if you can. It is not a typical novel in the defined form of a novel, but it's an experimental novel. So, it's a long sentence, but I'm going to give you this and move on to the next point. This is from Temporary People by Deepak Unnikrishnan, who is from Thrissur, but now lives between Abu Dhabi and the US. And here we go. In a labor camp somewhere in the Persian Gulf, a laborer swallowed his passport and turned into a passport. His roommate swallowed a suitcase and turned into a little suitcase. When the third roommate, privy and vital to the master plan, ran away the next morning with the new suitcase and passport, he made it past the guard on the night duty, onto the morning bus to the airport, past the board ticket agent at check-in, past security, past pat-down, and a rummage through his suitcase, past using the bathroom once, twice, thrice, to pee, to shit, to sit, past currency, past duty-free, where he stared at chocolates and booze and magazines and currencies, past families eating fast food in the tracksuit or designer wear, past men and women sleeping on the floor, past his present, past in the gold in the souks, the cranes in the sky, petrol in the air, dreams in his head, past God and the devil, smell of mess halls, past humidity, the hot air, past it all until he found an empty chair in the departure lounge where he sat and held his future in his hands. It was then the little suitcase sprouted legs and ears, and the passport developed palms and long fingers, as well as a nose and a mustache. And soon after the boarding call, at the very moment the stewardess checked his documents, the third laborer was asked to wait. Wow, that's great. I hope you're enjoying. You're with me. I can't, I'm just reading out from the, my notes, so I can't see you. Hope everything is fine. Is it okay, Linda? Is it going well?
It's going great, Sabin. Continue,
Okay,
please.
thanks. So these opening lines and paragraphs pick our interest and curiosity, don't they? They open a world of new experiences, cultures, and people for us. We are hooked. We read on, traveling with the writer into the world he or she takes us to. For me, this is what makes me reading and makes me writing. I want to write like them. I want to write the stories of people that are around me. There are many stories that are untold in Kerala or from Kerala among us. I want to write that. What inspires me is this kind of writing, passionate, different voices from different continents. This is the magic of reading. Now just move on. So what does reading do to us? One, we saw it opens a different world to us, altogether new. Now, second is reading helps us empathize. That's very, very important. In a world or in a society, we have to empathize with people. Unless we empathize, we cannot understand, or we cannot solve the problems, or we cannot comfort the other person. But unfortunately, we can't get under the skin of other people. When my father was struggling with cancer, he was dying of cancer. I remember my mother, sister, and I used to, sit around his bed, while he was in pain. Though we loved him dearly, we couldn't help, elevate the pain. We just couldn't get under his skin. But because of the way he brought us up, we could empathize with him. the situation that he was in. I even prayed, that he died without much suffering. Not that I loved him any less, but in fact, I loved him more. In fact, that is the loose theme of my next novel, which I'm writing, which is titled "Finally, Father Died." I hope one of the publishers would pick that up. So my point is, reading helps us empathize. Characters hook us into stories. Aristotle once said that when we watch a tragedy, two emotions predominate: one pity, the second fear. Pity for the character and fear for ourselves. Even without noticing, we imagine what it's like to be them, the character, and compare their reactions to situations, how we have responded in the past, or imagine we might in the future. Reading helps us get under the skin of others. In fact, we say it is not possible to get under one's skin, but no, reading helps us to do so. It makes us empathize according to. There's a recent study which says reading fiction helps us empathize with others. The Canadian cognitive psychologist Keith Otley calls fiction the mind's flight simulator. You know, Okay. The Canadian cognitive psychologist Keith Otley calls fiction the mind's flight simulator. We've seen flight simulator where pilots sit in a like something called similar to cockpit and they simulate flight. Just as pilots can practice flying without leaving the ground, people who read fiction may improve their social skills each time they open a novel. It's not I'm saying this is
Ajita ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, Miss Sir left from the meeting.
I think sir is having some net issues.
I think so, ma'am.
Joined back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. You're there?
Linda, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Can I continue? Oh, I mean,
Yes, please, Sabin. We can hear you now. Please.
right. Sorry. So, as Canadian cognitive psychology said, Keith Otley said, he called fiction the mind's flight simulator. You don't have to leave your window side. You don't have to leave your room, but you can take flight. Yeah, fiction takes you to different worlds. So that's why you should read fiction, because that helps us empathize. As point number two. Point number three is, reading adds perspectives to what we call single stories. You know, most most of the media image of places, people are single stories. They will project what they want to project. They want us to read. So that's where not a Nigerian writer, Chimamanda Adichie, warns us against the dangers of a single story. Unless we read, we will be left with the stereotypes created by people with vested interest. In this broken and polarized world, our world is broken and polarized and increasingly getting polarized. Nothing is more dangerous than a single story. Adiji says, I quote, "The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem is not that they are untrue, but they are incomplete. They make us, they make the one story become the only story." That's what I say, unquote. That's what I say. When you read with uh, whatever you can, when you read fiction, when you read creative nonfiction, it adds perspectives to what you know. This is what the Aditi calls the dangers of a single story. For you, the young generation especially, you are the hope of the country. Should not have single stories about things, places, and people. That's the most important thing, to have single defined understanding of people and situations. And we need to be more open, rounded persons that those with closed and parochial views. So point number two, reading makes you a rounded character. No, it polishes of your character. It adds perspective to your views. Next point, reading broadens your borders. And similar to what what Keats called it, mind's flight simulator. Reading helps you transcend cultures and linguistic barriers, and helps you see the beautiful world, and prepares you to enjoy the real beauty of creation, which is the diversity of cultures, ecosystems, and beliefs. Only the reading takes you and helps you go beyond the borders, go beyond the confines, and helps you or prepares you to enjoy the beauty of this world and its creation. You can travel the world without passports and visas. You can check in at hotels and resorts without money or credit cards. Reading gives you wings. Next, obviously, the obvious point is reading improves your language. One sure way of improving your language or linguistic proficiency is reading. And language of the written word is critical to our cognitive development. Language is a vital part of human connection. Although all species have their ways of communicating, humans are the only ones that have mastered cognitive language communication. Language allows us to share ideas, thoughts, and feelings with others. It has the power to build societies, but also tear them down. Language is what makes us human. It is how people communicate. By learning a language, it means you have mastered a complex system of words, structure, and grammar to effectively communicate with others. Language helps us win hearts. Language helps us find meaning in life. Language gives shapes to our hopes. A powerful language can move people. Now I want to read a, a, two paragraphs, very powerful two paragraphs from Martin Luther King's powerful Nobel acceptance speech. I want you to listen to it carefully and see how emotionally and powerfully he spoke. I quote, "I accept this award today with an abiding faith in America, an audacious faith in the future of mankind. I refuse to accept despair as a final response to the ambiguities of history. I refuse to accept the idea that the easiness of man's present nature makes him more morally incapable of reaching up to the eternal oughtness that forever confronts him. I refuse to accept the idea that man is mere flotsam and jetsam in the river of life, unable to influence the unfolding events which surround him. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I refuse to accept that the cynical notion that nation after nation must spiral down a militaristic stairway into the hell of thermonuclear destruction. I believe that unarmed truth, unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant. I believe that even amid today's mortar bursts and whining bullets, there is still hope for a better tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity and equality of freedom for their spirit. Unquote. Wow, I'm tired. Oh, how powerful, how poetic. There is another speech, I Have a Dream, by, you should listen. You should go on the internet and check out, get the text of his speeches and read the power of language. Last point, stories heal inner wounds. The world needs stories. You and I need stories. Stories heal our inner wounds. They help us understand others and situations and help us forgive. Stories are therapeutic. Stories have been with us since the beginning of the world. First, we heard them, then we read them. It is critical in our socio-cultural fabric that we continue to write, read, and listen to stories. That's where reading becomes important, where it becomes a powerful tool to build a better, harmonious society.
You can't even write that down.
That's why we should read. That's the magic of reading. I'm going to wind up, with this beautiful poem by one of my favorite poets, the American poet Jane Kenyon. Please listen. The poem is called Let Evening Come. Let the light of late afternoon shine through the chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chaffing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in the long grass. Let the stars appear and moon disclose a silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will. And don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless. So let evening come. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It rightly said, good intentions die unless they are executed.
Yes.
So we promise you to execute all the wonderful ideas suggested by you. Thank you so much, sir, by giving such a wonderful talk. It was really informative.
Thank you.
Now it's
I
time.
hope most people.
Okay. Now it's time for the students to interact with SABIN, sir. For that, I call upon Devika R. Devika.
Yes, ma'am. Namaste, sir. I'm Devika R of grade 12. Sir, you mentioned that you're a selective reader, and you mentioned Anne Salim, Arundhati Roy, then Gabriel Garcia Marquez, George Orwell. They are your favorite authors. So I'm just curious to know what in particular in their works attracted you to their works, or what is there particularly in their works which made you interested in them or in their works?
Yeah, it depends. Reading is a habit, and it's a very subjective habit. It also depends on your childhood, your memories, your conditioning. The writing that appeals to me may not appeal to you. That doesn't mean that the writing is bad, but it is how we relate to it. It also to do with our experiences. So yes, obviously Aeneas is a wonderful writer. I love his language, and no words to say Arundhati. You know how what magic she can weave with language. You know, of course, Gabriel Marcus is gave to the world magic realism. You know, so I'm captivated by the sort of that sort of magic brilliance in writing. Imagination, flights of imagination, and also a little bit of being realistic. They all write about ordinary people, but they take that, their writing takes them into another level. So that's what has attracted them, me to them rather than to me. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Devika. Now I invite Adira Das. Adira.
Yes, ma'am. Namaste, sir. Sir, I would like to ask a question that how do you take the different tasks of writing as an author and a journalist?
In a way, both are communicating. Both writing, the primary purpose of both writing is communicating, but reporting is where facts are sacrosanct. You can't play around with facts. But in fiction, you can play around with facts and make it. You can fictionalize facts. You have more freedom to play around. But in journalistic writing, you can't. You can't fiddle with facts. So but for me as a writer, my journalistic experience has helped me because my first book, The Cliffhangers, is all the incidents that is narrated in The Cliffhangers have taken place sometime or the other in Kerala. And as a writer, I've made a note of it, in my notebook, and I've used them in a fictitious way. And for Shamal Days, the characters that is, Shamal Days is based in a small newsroom in the Gulf. The characters, I've lived there for 15 years. I've worked in news organizations and magazines. So these are characters that I've come across in different phases of my life. So their names are changed. Their character, their behavior has been stretched, fictionalized. So that's how I don't write novel as a writer, as a journalist, nor do I do my reporting as a novelist. As there is a difference. There is a very defined line between these two.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Adira. Next, we have Kartika Ramdas.
Yes, ma'am. So I have good morning, sir. So I have a question for you. Who was your inspiration in becoming a journalist?
My grandfather, who is Vakamaulavi, who started one of the first newspapers in Kerala, Swadeshabhimani, and which was confiscated by the king. But he refused to say sorry or apologize to the king. And the editor, Sir Ramakrishna Pulla, was exiled. When the king called my grandfather and said, if you want your press back, those were, it was a brand new press imported from England, the latest at that time, which used to cost quite a lot of money, because it cost, I think, about 10,000, 12,000 rupees those days, when an acre of land in Trivandrum was only 100 rupees. So that's how much money my grandfather invested to import a press to run this newspaper and other publications. So of course, he is, I'm his grandson, so is my, and he said he refused to, apologize as for his brave brand of journalism. So he is my, sort of role model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Kartika. Next, I invite Dvaita Krishnakumar. Dvaita.
Namaste, sir. I'm Dvaita Krishnakumar of class 12. My question to you, sir, in your opinion, will e-books overrule real books?
That's a tricky one, but see, for example, let me tell you, this pandemic days, both my books came out during lockdowns periods. My Cliffhanger came out in the first lockdown. Shamal Days have come out in the second lockdown. So the sale of physical books has been affected, but the online or the e-books have been selling well. So in this situation, yes, e-books are doing well. But then in the long run, and I've spoken to a few of my friends who run bookshops and all that. They said people do buy physical books. And it's not that there is a dip. Somehow that's a misconception. Physical books are doing well, and I do believe I'm slightly biased towards physical books. So I hope it will continue to sell well. But then with technology, things are moving. We can't be, so confined and say that close our hearts to technology. No, things will change. The platforms will keep on changing. But I hope that physical books will continue to rule the roost.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dvaita. Now, Indu ma'am.
Yes, namaste. Thank you, Ajita. Namaste, sir. I'm Indu, teacher at CKM. So I have a question. This is basically about the artist initiated organization that we have, the Kochi Binale Foundation. So they do take up a lot of these outreach initiatives through the year. So, sir, how do you think that these are occasions, these are ventures for youngsters, sir?
The Binale.
Yes.
They have children's Binale.
Yes, of course. So because our children do hear about it, but I don't know whether really they look into it.
See, Binale is contemporary art.
Yes.
Conceptual. I worked in Binale. I was the first editorial director of Binale. So for me, it was an eye opener. I never knew that art was like this elsewhere in the world. For me, this is contemporary art. So if our children can get an exposure to that kind of contemporary art, I think there is no harm in it. Their eyes, their understanding will be open. We get in future, we may have, better artists out of them. So I think that's a good initiative. So there's a lot of participation in children's Binale.
Yes.
There is a lot of enthusiasm and participation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Indu ma'am.
I have a question for you, Iqbal sir. This is the principal. I haven't read any of your books, but I have read the review and it's quite compelling.
Yeah.
One of the books review read this. It says, Iqbal has an affinity for sketching the contours of the character as dynamic beings. So I would like to know, or probably my students would like to know, was these characters real life observations or figment of your imagination? And if it was real life, how do you actually see? I want to know the process. How do you know what to look at? How do you know what to imbibe, what to cement it in your head, and then are characters born out of your head that way? What is the process? What goes in? That's what I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. You remember in King Lear, Shakespeare says, "Nothing will come out of nothing will come out of nothing," right? Nothing comes out of nothing. So you can't create anything out of void unless you're God. So you need material. So for a writer, for me, books plus people. I observe people. In 2 minutes, if I come across a person in 2 minutes, I try to, find out some kind of a, peculiarities in behavior, in speech, in body language in a character that goes in. That's that is fed in me. And now, I would like to, explain or talk about a wonderful experience while I was writing the cliffhangers. I used to sit the same place, where I'm sitting now, and there's a wall in front of me. And I was writing, and there's a character. If you read the cliffhangers, the mother character, like, the protagonist mother. She's extremely angry, always angry. And I never explained why she is so angry. But that character, popped up by herself. I never had in my wildest imagination to bring in a character like that. She came up before me on the wall and she spoke. And I just literally wrote down. That's the magic of writing, In that process, it will happen. That magic will happen. And as we grow, we interact in the society. As a writer, you are observant. You observe people. You take down notes. You keep it in some way. In the process of writing, that's a magic, man. I can't just pinpoint this is how it happened. There is the magic. That is the magic of writing. When you start writing, it's these things happen. I don't believe in muse inspiring you. I believe in observation, reading, doing your research. But and I also believe in that magic moment of writing. These things happen.
So it would be a combination of real life characters,
yes,
and then you look into them, you look at them, and you tuck them in your head, and you also draw from them your characters too. Yeah, right. Thank you, sir. One more question. There was an interview for expats of West Asia. In that particular interview, when you were asked about how to inspire the budding writers, there was a particular line which says you have to read intelligently. How do you read intelligently?
I mean, you read.
Yeah.
You read. I don't read Milton Boons. I don't look down upon it. But then you read and you throw, right? But certain things you read and you try to get under the skin of the writer and reverse the process. How he or she has imagined things. So what could have been the writing process of the writer? Why this word? Can we change that word? How can we change the syntax and see? It will. That's how I do. I take a paragraph. That's why I don't finish books. I keep on reading them. So I try to change. I try to type. For example, I take a paragraph of Arundhati and I type it myself and see, is this the way she could have written? Then I try to undergo that process of writing those sentences. So that's a very strange ways of reading. So I said, you read and remember what you read, and read intelligently. I really mean it. I mean, I measure those words when I said those words. Read intelligently. Read knowing what you're reading. And read. If you look at the newspapers, you know that these headlines have slants of a political party or religious party. So when you read intelligently, you know why they are using these things. When you read fiction, read intelligently and see, fiction. When I was reading, for example, ma'am, this is my book, Shamal Days, and when there are passages, there are pages in that which could be boring because I'm talking about the life of expatriates in the Gulf, and I told my editor, you don't delete it, you don't cut it, even though it doesn't go with the flow of the narrative. I want them to be there because I want them on record. One of the purposes of writing a novel is not just to tell a story, but to put on record lives of people. So these are the intelligent parts of it. As a novelist, I have a duty to the society I live in. I just don't tell stories or entertain people, but there's a far more serious role of recording what is happening. So reading intelligently is all part of it. I take reading very, very seriously, and I remember what I read. I make a note of it. I try to sometimes I copy writers. That's how we improve. This is the way he's written or she's written. Let me try and write a similar passage, a paragraph. I may not be use it in the book. These are exercises as a writer.
Okay, that's a wonderful thought, sir. Like you take Arundhati's work and see whether you can better it or you can phrase it better. So in the
But I failed.
process of
I failed.
yeah in the process of luxuriating in the words, would you at times miss the main plot? Does that happen?
Yeah, I consider writing and editing are two different arts, okay, or sets of skills. I'm a writer who needs an editor. I always tell my publishers. I work with two publishers now. I've told them sometimes I tend to underwrite, sometimes I tend to overwrite. I have no ego as a writer, because when my editor asks me, Sabin, this is where I think you can go a little more, little deeper into this area, and that's what they just give directions. Okay, then I rework on it, and certainly he said it's a bit, it's a bit fat. We can trim it here. Why don't you just, take a second look and cut the fat when you're digressing? You're going away. So this is, sometimes they beat the narrative into shape. So we need an editor. So that is, we might miss the plot, miss the bus, because we are so engrossed in it. So a second pair of eyes are always important in writing process. In the final product. But when you write, ma'am, I want to tell the students also, if you're writing, don't think about all these. Just write. First draft, don't think. First draft, just write. These kind of editing and and all comes into your second draft or third draft. So first important thing is whatever you have it, get it down on the paper. That is the first and primary thing. Do it, then we can do anything later on. You can't edit things that is in your heart, right, or mind. You have to get it out on the paper.
Thank you, sir. One more question, and this will be the last one from me. How do you deal with rejection slips? Tell us, because many of us here are budding writers, and even though we understand Ernest Hemingway was rejected many times before he actually made it, it's still difficult to get rejection slips. So how do you deal with that?
I reached a stage where I thought I would never be published. I thought I resigned to the fact that I would be happy with being an unpublished writer. But then I knew that I can't stop writing. Writing is, for me, it's like breath. There were personal, dark or very struggling phases in my life. Then it was writing that pulled me through. So it was my world of escape from my pains. Then at the same time, I was ambitious, and I used to send my stories, chapters to literary agents, and they said, your writing is okay, but at the moment we are not able to represent you, and I'm sorry, good luck. I got used to it. At this point, Anis, my cousin, was there was a point I said, Anis, I'm stopping, I'm quitting. I can't write. He said, no, tenacity is a virtue. Tenacity is a virtue. So hold on, hang in there. Even at the age of 80, you can get published. So that kept me going. And then finally, when I submitted my cliffhangers, I got the mail from the publishers. I said, we read through and all that. I said, okay. I know, I was waiting for the rejection line. Then the magic line, they said, if you send us, if you allow us, we would be happy to publish your novel. Wow, that was a moment of, that's an epiphany. So yeah, we get rejected, we get wounded, and it's easy to quit, but don't quit. You may be at the threshold of getting published. So if you quit, it all gone.
Thank you. Yes, writing is really a lonely art, as you quite rightly put it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We have already come to the end of the session. For vote of thanks, I call upon Mrs. Indu Nair. Indu, ma'am.
Namaste once again. Namaste one and all. Gratitude is a memory stored in the heart and not in the mind. Our most valid guest of the day. principal, vice principals, teachers, and my beloved, most beloved children. It is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of the CKM family, let me extend my most sincere thanks to God Almighty who made us realize this wonderful morning. I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our resource person, Mr. SABIN IQBAL, who spared time from his busy schedule to speak on this occasion. Sir, we are grateful that you have spent your valuable time to inspire the youngsters here. Sir, as you said, reading makes our experiences. They heal our wounds, and sure, it opens a new world. I'm sure, sir, that some of the lines you quoted from The Infinity in the Palm of a Hand, Miss Arundhati Roy, Mr. Deepak Unnikrishnan, would make our readers thinking. I hope your message to read intelligently has struck a chord in our young readers. Thank you, sir. Hope the thoughts you plan to evolve in your new book, Finally Father Died, does reach out and make the reader empathize. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Words will not express the gratitude we have for Mrs. Linda Joseph. Ma'am, basically, it is a boundless enthusiasm, your keen interest in the language that made you accept our thought of the Reading Day celebration. Ma'am, from the depth of my heart, let me thank you. The initiative, support, time, and above all, the attitude that you bear is beyond my expression. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. I take this opportunity to thank our school management, our principal, Mrs. Sheila Vargas, vice principals, Uma ma'am, Mini ma'am, our IT teachers, the teachers in this committee for the week's celebrations, class teachers, subject teachers who have played their part in coordinating this session. Thank you. My deepest sense of appreciation to you all. Now, no event at school happens if not for our young readers out there. Dear ones, as our resource person just said, let's not become stereotypes, but broaden our outlook and enjoy, appreciate the beauty of this creation. Events like this cannot happen overnight, right? So I hope my students out there realize, cherish the valuable thoughts, experiences that were shared by the speakers today. We hope you'll ponder on these thoughts and prove them worthy. Dear students, let me appreciate your interest, your presence on this occasion. Once again, thanking you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, a word of appreciation and gratitude to all those who make this session a grand success. Let me conclude this session with a beautiful quote by our former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Learning gives creativity. Creativity leads to thinking. Thinking provides knowledge, and knowledge makes you great. Thank you all. Students, you can leave the session.